So we need to focus on the companies that are going to win long-term, be smart investors. And that is something I hope our listeners can pick up on, is making long-term investment choices.
He has a crypto startup. Trump's son has a crypto DeFi app. Trump has his own DeFi platform. As we want more compute, better graphics, everything that we want as a user, like the customer, we don't go back to 90s movies and go, man, I just wish movies were more like that. Right? We don't do that.
Want 8K.
Welcome to Bullish and Beyond. It's Beery the Bull. I'm your AI co-host. Join myself, Brian the Mac Man, and JT Knows Things while we dive deep into the world of stocks, crypto, and how to live a bullish life. It's time to get bullish, and there's no better place to start than right here. Let's dive in.
Episode 6, Bullish and Beyond. We are green today, folks. Bullish as ever. And what is going on? Stocks have been up and down so much this month. Crypto has been so volatile. Last week was crashing. This week soaring. JT, clue us in. We want to know what's going on.
Oh, brother, it has been immaculate what's been going on. You know, the markets respond so sensitively to all of this news that's going on. You know, last week it was red, and it was because the federal marshals announced that they were going to be selling almost 70,000 Bitcoin, not dollars, actual Bitcoin. So billions are about to hit the market.
That's
and
a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And it drove the market down. People were just worried. It's just news. It hasn't happened yet. And there was a flash crash last week. We went from 101
Can
to
you
90.
see if they are selling? Is that something that you see with the wallets in the back end?
Oh yeah, that's the nice thing about blockchain in general. Like it's a public ledger, and then you have Twitter accounts, Watcher Alert, Watcher.guru. It's basically AI bots that watch wallets of large organizations, and then they announce
Interesting.
when they're moving it. Yeah. Watcher.guru, and then Watcher, or maybe it's Watch.app, but both of those handles, they basically announce all, and then there's Whale
Okay.
Alert as well.
Let's put
So
those in the show notes so people can check it out too, because that's super
I like
interesting.
that.
I mean, in equities, there's nothing like that. When we find out that Berkshire Hathaway sold a huge stake in Apple, it's at the end of the quarter when they release,
Mhm.
their quarterly report that shows that. But during those 3 month span, there is no indication unless, executives are going on air announcing they're making big sales, but they don't do that because it
Right.
would hurt their position when they're selling. So super interesting that crypto and blockchain makes that happen.
And I make the argument all the time that that could be why, one of the reasons why crypto is so volatile. There's instant 24/7, 365. At the speed of light, we can get information that can affect asset prices. So, and everyone in the world will know about it. I mean, Twitter, Elon tweets, 200 million people see it. So there's like this
Yeah.
town square that
X.
millions of people have access to. Yeah, you're right. X, my bad. Sorry, Elon. I know you love calling it X. I'm still getting used to it, but you get the idea, you
I
can
think it's a
absolutely
combination of
front run
that
that.
instant information, but then also the fact that you can trade 24 hours. So I think that
Yeah.
the volatility is both the information and the trading at 24/7.
Yeah, the liquidity is crazy. I mean, it's everyone always asks about that, and it's like crypto is the most liquid market. It just is. There are tokens. If you're buying meme coins, you're going to not have liquidity. But if you're talking about Bitcoin, yeah, there's $2 trillion that trades hands, and it can happen at any time. 1:30 a.m. doesn't really matter. It'll settle inside of 10 minutes. You got trades that wait days to settle, maybe months, depending on the kind of trade and the kind of transference of value. So it's super interesting. And Trump
That's really cool.
basically, yeah, Trump on Truth Social, his version of X, had said that he's going to stop. I don't know if he can, but that he's going to stop the Federal Marshal Service from liquidating America's Bitcoin holdings and establish a treasury because he wants to. They already own 1% of the entire supply of Bitcoin, but he wants to make that closer to 5%, and which would be around a million Bitcoin. And
That's a
he's
lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that similar to what Michael Saylor for MicroStrategies wants to hold? Did he say something about 5%?
yeah, and he's way closer than America, which sounds insane, but he is. Like he's pushing, I think 300,000 Bitcoin. America has maybe
Wow.
160,000 or something. All
Okay.
seized through criminal activity, right? It's not like they've bought that. It's the Silk Road went down and they seized their entire treasury,
Yeah.
right? That was about 100 and something thousand. Mount Gox, they got about 40,000 from that through, I think, bankruptcies or something. Either way, it's just literally been through asset seizures and forfeitures. So Trump really wants
Some
to,
pretty valuable seizures they've made there. I mean, these Bitcoin has
yeah,
gone what, 50x since they got those Silk Road coins or something. I don't know exactly, but it's
yeah.
insane.
And when they got him, this was back in 2016. So
Yeah.
you tell me an asset on our government's
Bitcoin was
balance
5 grand
sheet.
back then or something.
Yeah, yeah, less than. They're up
Yeah.
probably 20x on it, and I can't think of a better financial move they've made in the past 20 years other than holding their Bitcoin, which is really the strategy that I recommend to well, in my opinion, no financial advice on this podcast. In my opinion, that is the best strategy is to hold. And Trump saying that we're going to continue that strategy in the future. So and he's getting inaugurated Monday. So it's just that's why
It's
we
coming
went
up fast.
down. Yeah, I mean, in this market, on a $2 trillion asset going up and down 13% in 2 days,
Wow.
all from Truth Social tweets or the equivalent of tweets, it's pretty crazy. I know your market is not that crazy. I know a big 5% drawdown or up is massive
It's
for.
been volatile though. Oh
Has
my.
it? It's been frothy. Tell us about it. What's going on?
Apple went down 4% yesterday, my most beloved stock.
Damn.
They got really hurt on this report that their China iPhone sales aren't doing as well. And there's a couple
Got
things
it.
behind that. Huawei and some of their competitors out there are pumping out pretty good phones at very cheap prices. And also, Apple Intelligence doesn't even work in China. They're not able to use OpenAI over there. So they're looking to partner with an Alibaba or companies like that that might be able to offer that service to them. But they're not
Got it.
doing it yet. And that is one of the reasons that phone sales are down. They're not down a ton though. So I mean it's a little bit of, I think overselling on the news. So I actually would be buying if I was looking to get an Apple position. Yesterday it hit 228. And just a few weeks ago on day after Christmas, we were at 260. So,
Yeah,
it's down significantly,
that is big.
10%, over 10%. So yeah, it took a big hit, but there's so much good stuff happening at Apple. And that's why I want to remind people to stay hungry and stay foolish. And that is a Steve Jobs quote, folks, former Apple CEO. So what's going on at Apple? Right now, talking about AI is that they're using the M2 chips to run their data centers, but they're about to go to all M4. And
Okay.
beyond that, I'm seeing that they're road mapping an all new AI chip. I don't have a name for it yet, but they're moving away from using their M series computer iOS chips to a
Hmm.
specific AI chip to help with inferencing and stuff like that. And when Apple makes their own chips, they're usually incredible because they integrate so tightly with the software. So whatever they
Right.
come out with is going to be, leaps ahead of what's out there in terms of, data center output, I think. And
Do you
very
think
excited to see what they come up with.
yeah. Do you think their stock price could be reacting to the potential research and development investments that will take? Do you think they're expecting less cash
They're,
or less
th-
shareholders' equity?
that's a good question. I mean, their R&D has been going up significantly, but
Hmm.
that is, investing in the data centers like we're talking about. Um, but their cash flow has not been dented. I mean, they're bringing in 20 billion plus cash flow a quarter. I mean, it is insane.
That's wild.
The only other company I see putting out these kind of numbers right now in terms of cash flow is like a JP Morgan. I mean, they just announced the other
Wow.
day based upon all the recent deal flow that they made like $15 billion or something like that. And that's
That's
getting
nuts.
close to the Apple territory. Not many people can compete in that space. It is
The
insane.
craziest thing about that is JP Morgan, they move 10 trillion a day across the globe. Um, which is, what, four times the market cap of Apple. So I know that doesn't directly translate to market cap, but it's just interesting to see at these sizes the kind of net profits certain businesses make. And it's important to think about when you're investing in sectors, and that's why we like tech so much. I mean, the cash flows are crazy. Apple has a fifth of the value they interact with, and they are making more money than financial services, as an example. If you're looking at it from sector to sector to sector to sector, tech offers things that just no other sector can. The meteoric rise of NVIDIA is another great example. I know that's another one of your big names that you
There's
love.
plenty of negatives though as well on that tech side. So you have to invest, in the strongest horses, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. The strongest horses, and I like to take an approach of the when the water rises, all boats rise. I would like to just own the harbor, So Nvidia's great because as we want more compute, better graphics, everything that we want as a user, like the customer, we don't go back to 90s movies and go, man, I just wish movies were more like that. Right? We don't
No, we
do
want
that. Like,
8K. It's got to get
yeah,
better.
12K, 50K, we don't care.
Yeah.
We want it to be better than what we see in real life. So there
Yes.
all of that demand is endless. And Nvidia, it regardless of who delivers us that content at the app layer, so if that's Facebook, Snapchat, X, Instagram, does not matter. Nvidia will do well regardless of where that demand accentuates. Wherever that demand actually gets
100%.
realized, NVIDIA is going to do well. TSM is going to do well. All of the people that do the technology or the infrastructure for these social paradigms, uh, I feel like are your best bets. And you know, if they've been around 20 years, they're more likely to be here than if they've been around 2 years. And if they've been around 50 years, and so on. Like Jensen Huang's been doing this 30 something years.
As long as
Um,
they innovate, because some of these older companies are so stuck in their ways. I mean, it could be a value play or something like that. But a lot of these companies that might have been around for 50 to 100 years are not on the cutting edge. And they're just more focused on, maintaining as opposed to growing.
who do you think that is? Do you have a name in mind?
Any old company like a Kellogg's or a Campbell's or
Yeah,
something
I
like
see.
that that's just like a staple.
S- Something out
They're
of tech.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in tech. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
I was talking
consumer
about tech. Yeah.
discretionary. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like in
Well, we
tech,
could
I
talk.
feel
We
like
could talk
that's the
about
game.
BlackBerry. How about BlackBerry? Get
Oh,
this.
here we go.
They hit
Okay.
a high yesterday. It's so funny. I was actually reading about BlackBerry.
I know. That's crazy. I haven't even
They
thought of that name
stopped.
in forever.
They don't make handsets anymore. They have
Okay.
0.0 market share, just to clarify for anyone. Uh,
That's wild.
but they've innovated in other ways, and they announced that they stopped hundreds of thousands of cybersecurity attacks. So
Oh,
now
wow.
they're focused more on software for cyber than anything else. So interesting.
That's one hell of a pivot. You want to talk about a
Yes.
burgeoning
I would not
industry.
buy it, just to be clear. Not buying BlackBerry.
It's an
It
interesting
hit a
pivot
high.
though,
I'm not
right?
I'm not I'm not bullish. Not bullish on BlackBerry BB.
Yeah.
I
I
want I
kind of
want
want
to
to
take
look into it.
I
I
want to take a
do.
step
That's
back.
interesting.
You're talking a lot about Nvidia, and I completely agree that owning the harbor, they're making all the chips for all those companies. But then you mentioned TSM. TSM is one layer up. They are literally getting everyone's chip business. There basically is no competition. Like technically, they compete with Samsung and Intel at the foundry level, but I just disagree that they even have a chance. They're
Right.
not even in this. They're in the major. TSM's in the major leagues. The other people are batting single A. Like they're not even in the same field. TSM is in a moat all of its own. I don't see anyone catching up, frankly, in the next couple decades. And the
Uh,
reason I can be so convinced, at least for this decade, let's say, because they're putting investments in place that no one else is. They are rolling out 3 chip factories in Arizona. I've mentioned this before, but doing more research on it so I can be a little more specific.
Yeah, of
They
course.
just announced that they are hitting full scale production of Apple's current chips
Oh
at
wow.
their new facility. This just started like this week, let's say. And so they're doing, I think it was 6 nanometer in this first one. It's really hard to get these smaller chip products online. But by next year, they're going to have the 4 and the 3 nanometer online. And then the year after that, hopefully the 2 nanometer. But there's 2 new facilities coming up in Phoenix or in the surrounding area before the end of the decade. Those are already in the works, ground broken.
Wow.
Also, they're doing 2 factories in Japan. One just went online a few months ago, and another one's coming online in a few years. And then another factory going online in Germany. So no one else can pour, these tens of billions to start these projects and have the resources and know-how to do it. So
Mhm.
TSM in a league all of its own. I am super bullish for the next 10 years on TSM.
I mean, how could you not be long on a name like that with all of that going on?
It
Like,
gets me excited.
yeah, of course. And the crazy thing about both our strategies is you can be super excited, but it's the patience because you're so far
Yes.
ahead of the curve that, it's going to take a long time for people to realize what all of these things are doing to our world, to our universe, like these things are changing how we're going to function. I mean,
I don't. Why do people don't realize that TSM is the play? Like, I mean, the stock announced earnings 2 days ago. Revenue was up 38%, profit was up 57%. Those are huge numbers to post, and the stock, popped 5%, and then you only ended up a couple percent yesterday because the market, kind of nosedived towards the end of the day. And people don't know most of the stock movement is related to the market. The individual stocks about 25%. The sector's about 25%, and then the market's about 50%. So if the market just
wow.
craps the bed, it's so hard for a stock to move up against it. And part of it is because they're inside of ETFs and other things that just have to get bought and sold. And you can't break the market. The market's a beast. So
It's
be
crazy.
mindful that just because you pick the right horse, the market can still trump it.
Yeah, 100%. The markets are irrational, right? It goes back to Benjamin Graham, when you get into the market, whether you recognize it or acknowledge it or not, you are partnering with Mr. Market. And Mr. Market is a very irrational drunk, as described by Benjamin Graham. So every now and then, he's going to be doing stupid things, and it's your job to capitalize on those stupid things. And I feel like personifying the market like that has really helped me develop a relationship with my names and like my assets and not getting emotionally perturbed when it goes one way or the other. Because you're absolutely right. The markets are irrational. They're going to like look at the Bitcoin thing. I mean, just one tweet from this AI account about the Federal Marshal Service turning on their wallet, and then a news article from them 2 hours later sent almost 100 billion out of Bitcoin from fear.
Wow.
And then Trump's like, we're going to do this, and then like literally we're back up. I mean, it is so frothy in both markets.
There's so many examples of that.
It's crazy. And it's only getting, as valuations get higher, as these prices get higher, you would
You see, it's,
think
it's getting more volatile than less.
and you would think that it's the opposite. These are bigger assets. Like you would think that it would take more to make something volatile if they go from 100 billion to 2 trillion. You would think it'd be less
Like you
volatile.
said, something to do with the information flow. I mean, information is so much quicker now. I think also we have the algorithms to thank for some of this issue, is that they're trading
Mm,
faster than any human, and those bots just jump. I mean, yesterday, the day before, when they come out with the
yeah.
CPI numbers showing the inflation, it's like within like seconds, the market is just drastically different, and nothing else changed besides a number came out, and people were excited that it was 3.2 and not 3.3. Like it's literally that big of a change of seemingly something so small. um
That-
I have another great example of something kind of irrational. It happened in the
Okay.
equities market. Last week when NVIDIA's CEO spoke and said that quantum computing wasn't, here for the next 15, 30 years, those stocks dropped 50%. And,
And
just
that's crazy for
nosedived.
your world, brother. That's crazy.
Nuts.
50%? It's crazy.
And then we talked about that a little bit in the last podcast. But then the day after the podcast, another person spoke. His name, Mark Zuckerberg. He pulls a little bit of weight, but he actually even said he's not an expert in quantum, but he knows a little bit about it and said it wouldn't be around for a while either. And then the stocks dropped again, even though he says he wasn't an expert, literally his words.
That's
However,
crazy.
something changed. 2 days ago, we had an update from NVIDIA's corporate office that they're having a quantum
Okay.
day at their conference in March. And during that
Oh.
quantum day, they're having I don't know if it's a roundtable or a discussion, whatever it's going to be, with a couple of these quantum computing CEOs, the guy from D-Wave and the CEO from Rigetti, two of the companies that have been popping off a lot. And just from that announcement that they're going to be sitting there talking, the stocks went up 20 some percent. So it didn't say that quantum is coming. It's just that
Right.
we're gonna talk about quantum.
Yeah. People are front running 20 years of research and development. Is that what's going on? I mean,
Yeah,
it's crazy. That's
but
crazy. That's
the people
gotta,
can't make up their mind. They don't. No one knows if quantum is here or not. And another example was one of the guys inside Microsoft wrote a blog. He's like the COO of special projects or something like that. And he says that quantum applications are going to be real in the next year and to get ready for. This is the year to get ready for quantum, he was saying. And then those same
wow.
stocks went nuts again. They went up 20, 30% based upon these comments. And it's so little evidence. It's just completely irrational. They're doing no revenue. Rigetti Computers, I looked it up. They did like 18 million in revenue. The stock's worth billions. If
It's
Sutter Mac
crazy.
did 18 million in revenues worth billions, I couldn't even imagine.
That would be wild. It's crazy the
Dude.
valuations we're seeing. And it's so frothy. It's not getting better. I've only seen it get worse. The fact that that's in the equities market. Do you have like a name for that sector? Meme stocks? I've seen that online. Like,
I think memes is a good way to kind of quantify it all. And I think when you say meme, you're assuming companies that are making little money but worth a lot.
okay. So I mean, I don't want to like,
Someone's pumping them.
yeah, I don't want to take a dump on these companies. I'm sure that, there's great people there, but the kind of
I mean, they're
behavior
real companies.
around,
They're just not making any
yeah,
money yet.
the behavior around their share price is the most unsavory thing about these names, in my opinion. Um, and
Yes.
I think it comes from a very desperate place. I think all of the, dumb money, retail, whatever. I think the times are so hard. I'm going to take kind of like a bearish turn on this. Like, they need more returns. So people are upping the alpha because there's real world issues they have. Credit card debt is at an all-time high right
They need
now.
to pay their bills.
Exactly.
How can
They're
they
like,
make
okay,
100% in a year? That's what they're trying to do, or make more than 100% a year, which is
yeah.
not normal.
In my industry, they're trying to make 100x in a day with the meme coins. I mean, they bought Hawk Tua. They bought what Fart Coin, Cummies, like clearly jokes. Like, these are meme coins. That's what they're supposed to be, jokes, and people are putting in their last dollar into these things, expecting a Dogecoin, a Pepe, because
Wow.
they have popped off. But
It
it's
has
one out of
happened.
every 30,000 tokens that do that. That's gambling. I
Wow.
mean, you're genuinely gambling, right? And you're seeing the same behavior in the equities market, which is, far larger. And I think it does come from a place of people really struggling right now. And
I agree.
I don't know what the Fed's going to do, right? They've been up and down. We got dovish and hawkish insights just 1 month apart. And
We don't know if our next thing's going to be raising or lowering rates. I mean, literally, it's all across the board. That's crazy that both are possible.
I know. What do you think? I'm curious. I'm not going to hold you to it, but it'd be fun to see how right you are this next month in Feb. Are we going to see a 25 bip cut, a 50 bip cut? Are we going to see a 25 bip raise, or is it going to
I'm
be
gonna
nothing?
go no change, no change,
No
uncertainty.
change.
They want to keep looking at the data.
I agree with you. It's going to be
I think they're
really
just
hard for
gonna
us to find
they're
little.
gonna sit tight, and they're gonna be like, oh, we saw this print, and we can't decide yet. But the thing that came out the other day was that the core inflation came down 0.1, and that's why the markets kind of popped. And it
Yeah,
just seems so insignificant, but it hadn't happened for 6 months. So
right.
I guess it is a slight turn of direction, but I don't think enough to make a cut based upon that one data point.
No, I mean that's like saying you mopped the kitchen and all you did was take one swipe of a Swiffer by the sink. You know, like it doesn't do anything. That's interesting. I think we're going to see. I'm gonna go on record. I'll say 50 bip cut this year. And
Okay,
I think it's going to be super modest. I think it's going to be very because for people that understand what we're talking about,
that
like
makes sense.
The Fed needs room. So if something bad happens in the market, right? They need room to cut to stimulate the economy. The fact that they have turned more
And to help their
hawkish.
interest payments.
Yeah, yeah, this is the balance that they have to figure out because if rates don't go down, our government has to pay more money for the debt the central
Trillions in
banks
interest.
trillions.
If people don't know,
Yeah,
trillions.
it passed a trillion. Yes, it did. Um, which is larger than our defense budget. So the central banks get more in interest. That's just the interest payments on
Crazy.
the money. We've borrowed what, 30 something trillion. So
It's
there's
not
over
sustainable.
it's not sustainable. No, we're running 120% deficit, and it was only 103% 4 years ago. So, regardless of how you feel about Biden, that has been the fiscal policy: spend, 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 spend. The Fed's doing their best to counteract this,
I
and
will say it seems like it's more of a president thing, not necessarily a Democrat or Republic thing of who's spending. I think presidents spend to get stuff done.
yeah,
And I think Trump's policies will be completely different than Biden's, but I do
yeah,
not think we're going to see a reduction in the deficit. One thing that comes to mind, though, could Bitcoin eventually pay down our deficit if we
that would
strategically
be
reserve it?
wild. Well, if you had a million Bitcoin priced at $1 million, that would be a $15 trillion asset, and if you owned a million of them, that would be six and six. That's 12 zeros, so that would be that'd be 10 trillion. They would have $10 trillion of
Hey,
value
that's
in Bitcoin.
30% of our deficit at least.
Or yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's only 1 trillion. Sorry, I missed a comma. So that's $1 trillion. That would pay off 1 year of their interest. Like that's how
Oh my.
screwed we are. It's not. I am waiting for Mr. Market to give me a massive deal. That's what I'm bullish on. You guys hear me all the time, like blood in the streets, I'm buying. I'm constantly trying to identify when those opportunities are going to come. And we have a serious issue coming up with the Fed needing to lower rates for better fiscal health. But on the flip side, if they are turning hawkish, that means they're expecting that they need room to cut. Like if they were not worried
Yeah.
about the market, if they were not worried about our economy,
They
they
would
would be
just cut.
cutting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're trying to defend that 3 or 4% right there for
Yep.
back in, because I think they're expecting things to come to a head. I mean, our household, like the government, went
There's
from
just
a
too much uncertainty right
101,
now. We don't know what's going to happen.
don't know what's going to happen. And like if you and your wife went from having a 30% surplus, even though we haven't had a surplus since the 70s. Let's just say you're able to put away 30% of your household income a year, and then you go to being minus 20%, let's just say. How many people would be confident in your family's ability to do everything that you say you're going to do?
Zero.
Right?
You can't run it. You
Right?
can't run a deficit every year. I mean, no actual business can run at a terminal deficit besides the U.S. government, apparently.
because we
And
can print
it could
money.
go on. It could go on almost forever. I mean, we've had offline discussions about this. It's hard to know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. I mean, you've talked about possible stagflation in the future, similar to Japan and stuff like that. But could this continue for decades? I mean, in theory, could keep going.
Japan's still here, everybody. But mind you, they were running at they are currently at a 230% deficit. We're at 120%. And we're increasing at 5% a year. That's a serious clip. And
Wow.
Japan has been dealing with stagflation since I would say, early 90s or mid to late 80s. As soon as they crossed the threshold of 120, 130% deficit, their deficit grew exponentially to the point where the fiscal policy had zero say, and they've had a negative interest rate at times. They raised their interest rate 15 basis points, and the whole market lost over $1 trillion from that carry trade. I don't know if we talked about that, but
I remember that. Yes.
yeah, over $1 trillion just from a
People
15 basis
unwound
point
all their
hike,
investments.
because the currency over there is so like not valuable that you can basically arbitrage the dollar to the yen, and then there's trillions of that arbitrage going on. That's called a carry trade, where you just take dollars to yen and you make your investments with
Yep.
yen, and then when it comes back to dollars, the dollars have outpaced the yen so much that you are actually getting more returns by doing it in yen. So it's like that's been
Berkshire
going on.
Hathaway perfected that trade.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
They
And it's
made
a real thing.
billions. Yeah.
100%. And America is, there are federal bank, or I'm sorry, our central banks and our government are right in that late 80s, early 90s Japan phase. The only thing that is going to turn us around is going to be a more aggressive fiscal policy where we either increase the revenue of the government. And that is one of the things that Trump keeps talking about. He keeps talking about
Talking
the
tariffs.
external revenue. Yeah, the external revenue service, right?
I
He's going to
know.
dial that up to 10. He's
We've
going
never
to,
had that, right? We've never had an ERS before, I don't think.
no, and it's a great idea because I mean, he remembers what it was like. We have been UNICEF to every country. Like, we've just had
I
this big
know.
heart on our sleeve. And Trump's like, it's over. It's done. We are subsidizing Canada 400 billion a year through trade deficits. We are subsidizing Greenland. And he's just like, you know what? We're done. We're only doing deals where we make money. And if you can't afford to exist, you can come into
Yep.
our borders and become
I
a
think we should
state.
help U.S. citizens more. I mean, why are we not supporting all the crazy national disasters that are happening from,
Amen.
the hurricanes in Florida and Carolina and the fires in Cali? Like, I mean, I don't even want to get into what happened in Cali. I mean, how does our amazing country not support and take care of that? Just freaking drop a 100 billion gallon water balloon on this thing already. Like, I don't get it.
Dude, hear me out. $250 billion of damages today. That was the update this morning when I was at the gym on the news.
Let's spend the
And
money ahead of time to fix this thing. I mean, I don't get it.
I don't get it either because we gave 3 times that amount to Ukraine. Think about that. I mean, 3 times that. And it's destroying over 8,000 buildings. Like the entire Orange County, LA, like it is destroyed.
Not just
And
the buildings, the lives, the culture. I mean, like you can't get back in a neighborhood. Yes, you can physically rebuild the homes, but you can't just start the schools and culture again. It's never the same.
that's true. That's true. And the result is print more money. Like I think it goes back to what you had said maybe 5, 8 minutes ago. It's like, what
But
other
who's
options do
profiting
they
from
have?
this? I'm not like a conspiracy theorist, but like in general, there are huge profits to be made from national disasters. Someone is buying the land cheap. Someone's making money shorting the insurance companies. Like there's all sorts of plays that go into this.
It's sad. I think it's sad. I don't know who benefits the most from this, but it's definitely a worthwhile like analysis, right? Like, what is happening? It How is there not enough water
And
to
I
like
hate
combat
going
this.
down the negative train to like, figure out who's screwing us over to make money. I like thinking about the positive side. I'm a very positive
Sure.
person, so I want to figure out what's going to change the world in a
Amen.
good way. But there are
Yeah.
things that are happening in a very negative way that people are profiting on in the market, and it is good at least to be aware of.
Yeah. I think that's a really good position to have. It's like, look, I don't want to be emotionally attached to what's going on. I just want to understand where could you get alpha,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah. I'm not trying to play
I don't
into it. I don't want to profit on the back of people losing their homes. That's not my personal play, but it's out
yeah,
there, and
it is.
money's changing hands.
I feel like, well, yeah. I don't know. I have a lot of conspiracies. I don't know if I want to air them all out on here right this moment, but yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good position to have. I think it's you have to be aware of these things. You have to think about if you're investing constantly and you're listening to podcasts like this, that is a tool you have that, you have to build it, you have to work on it. But when you're looking around at all of these events happening, try to think about what we call second order consequences. Like, what are the associated consequences of this thing? So, if a fire's roaring through $250 billion of property damages, like you just said, the insurance claims are crazy. $250 billion of claims.
Unprecedented.
So, unprecedented. That's going directly to insurance. So you could absolutely short that. You could also think of all of the people and all of the real estate groups that have
You could be buying
billions.
you could be buying building materials. Is Home Depot and Lowe's going to crush it because they're going to rebuild tens of thousands of properties?
Or the companies that even supply that raw material, or in the raw material itself. You could buy the commodities like the actual
Yeah,
lumber, the
it's a great
actual,
idea.
there's a lot of second and third order consequences. Like you could think Home Depot,
Are there
Lowe's, and then you
coins
could.
that track commodities? Is that a thing, or you just buy the commodities straight up?
So for now, there are people trying like to make tokens that are backed by commodities like gold. You have
Okay.
it's the hardest part about that
What Lynn should
really
I could buy a
is
coin for pigs or lumber?
not yet. And the problems are government. The DTCC, it is where everything gets established as a commodity or security, and the inventory of commodities are all monitored and federated by that entity. And they have ware stores across the globe where the supply of corn, the supply of gold, every commodity is accounted
It's
for
being
and
counted.
reported to the. Yeah. So, like, for a blockchain to operate, they need access to all of that data, and even if they
Okay.
got that data, they are dependent on a third party, the government, to give them that data. So it's a really big problem from a system perspective because you're all if you're holding an ETF, a gold ETF, you're relying on maybe 10 counterparties that your share is exactly what you thought you were getting. And that many counterparties in blockchain, that's exactly what we're trying to destroy. We want it direct from the source. Like it's decentralized.
There's
It
one true
is
source.
exactly like Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Like there's no arguing. It's computer science, and you can't do that when you have corrupt governments. Like there's a ware store in northern Africa, and there's been turmoil for 50 years there of a government, and you're trusting them that the gold storage in that country's warehouse is what they say it is.
It
Like,
might not even be there. We don't know.
yeah, we just trust our governments, some dude, literally a human with a clipboard in Africa, counting, putting it in a database, and like that's the process you have if you're buying commodities in the um, primary and secondary markets. So, like in crypto, when you
Yeah.
buy a token, it's a direct one-to-one representation of that asset. And since you have all of these counterparties ruining that, it's probably not going to happen until we get
Okay.
clarity on what crypto is. Because to this day, we still don't know if it's a security or a commodity. No one said it. The SEC just sues you for having
I
unregistered
watched an interview from
securities.
the SEC chief the other day. He obviously knows he's on the way out. He's resigning when Trump comes in. But he still the interviewer was pressuring him to say, what are the laws around crypto? And he could not commit one way or another. And everything is so vague. And he kept saying, well, all the laws are already out there. I've already read them all. They aren't following them. They're not reading them. Not the case. What
Not the case.
what's going to happen with this new administration? Do you actually think we're going to get laws, and how soon should we expect a policy change?
Oh, brother, it's going to be crazy. For people who don't know, Paul Atkins, that is the appointment for the SEC chair that Trump is going to replace Gensler with, because Gensler actually left, or he's leaving the 20th. So, I mean, the day Trump said he
He's
was
out.
basically
He
going to,
already knows.
yeah, yeah, because Trump at the Bitcoin conference said, if you're not gone, Gensler, and I win, I'm going to ruin you. I mean, he made us be like, yeah, we wanted blood. Like anyone in this industry wanted blood for Gensler, and he promised it. So Gensler resigned the second, like it was the next day. He's like, yeah, I'm out. I don't want to mess with Trump. I've done enough
No,
damage to the
no one
crypto
wants to. No one
community.
wants to mess with Trump. You see,
No.
you see the tech. You see this tech CEO bros cozying up to him that hated him during his first term,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of defense. Like you don't want to mess with Trump. I mean, one
Mm-mm.
one tweet, one post. I mean, you could lose 5% of the valuation of your company. Like
It's just
the
tanks your
risk is
share
too
price.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He might
these
air
guys.
out. He's been in legal trouble for 30 years. Like he might just air out and break NDAs just to ruin you. Like he doesn't care. He's like,
He
sue me,
doesn't
do
care.
it. Doesn't care. He's like, no, I'm going to destroy you. And you even have Hasbullah resign, like literally doing whatever they can to avoid any conflict with this man. Like they are afraid he's just going to press the button
Yeah,
and level their entire country
he'll
because
send
he's
people in.
oh, he'll send it. I mean, he'll drop 50,000 soldiers out of airplanes and take over that country in 10 days. He doesn't care. It'll be Kuwait all over again. He'll end it. I mean, he's very honest about that. And I think he's going to work on resolutions. I feel like World War III is less likely with him at the helm. There's a lot of bullish stuff happening.
His
Paul,
presence helps make those resolutions happen because like he is so
absolutely.
scary to so many people that they actually will believe when he says he's going to do something, and they'll make a pact to hopefully go to peace to avoid it.
Honestly, I feel like the world is best when America has that kind of authority. It's selfish as an American citizen. I was born here to have that position. I understand, but
Yeah.
we've not had that position, I would say, since 2020. And honestly,
Yeah.
the
Look what's
world has
happened
gotten
since.
so bad. Yeah. Like it's gotten bad. Like we have four areas of geopolitical conflict. We are the closest to a world war that we've been since probably the Cold War. And there's talks of nuclear weapons already. Zelensky talking about using ICBMs against Russia, Russia saying they would return that payload tenfold. I mean, that's happening in the background. You have NATO wanting to accept Ukraine, which would cause an actual full-scale World War III. You have Taiwan and China. China has passed into Taiwan's waters for the first time in 50 plus years since we have been defending Taiwan's
Oh wow.
waters. That's where we have all the chips being made. Not all of them, but a majority of the chips. They
I
want
want Trump to
control of
make a pact
Taiwan.
with them so they don't mess with Taiwan and TSM because I mean
A
that's one of the reasons
hundred
TSM is
percent
spinning up all these factories in the U.S. is literally
They're
protectionary
diverse,
measures
yeah,
against some random takeover happening. At least we'll have that later this decade online.
100%. And you have the Jerusalem. The Middle East is devolving, and without Jerusalem, we can't get oil cheaply to America. So if that was ever disrupted, gas prices would triple. A lot of people don't understand that's why we love Jerusalem. Without having the Mediterranean port they control, we would have to go down the entire shoe of Africa. And then we'd have to
The
go
Suez Canal
another,
is pretty crucial.
it's critical for our oil prices in America. And that could dramatically affect our economy. All of these things have, none of this was a concern with Trump at the helm. Like no one even thought about testing
Yeah.
our levers of authority and power in the world between the U.S. dollar, our trade agreement, like, and
Well,
then it's just
seems like things
gone.
are already in the works with Trump. Not even Trump takes the presidency on Monday, but just the other day they announced a ceasefire between Gaza and Israel. So like I also will say that President Biden had a hand in the plan as well, but both them coming together did make this plan happen. So things are moving in the right direction even before he takes the official helm. He's been doing
I
a
know,
lot of work in the background this last couple of months.
and the markets are reflecting it. I mean, he won the election. Let me just rewind time 3 months. He won, or 2 months. He won. Bitcoin went from 51,000 to 108,000. It doubled in less than
100%.
in less than 60 days on $1 trillion asset. We went from 1 to 2
Wow.
trillion just off the idea that Trump was going, and the stuff he's done in the background, like Paul Atkins, that was the original question. This guy, Paul Atkins, he's the new SEC chairman. He's been doing blockchain consulting similar to me for the past 10 years. He hasn't disclosed, but a percentage of his net worth in crypto. He has a crypto startup. Trump's son has a crypto DeFi app. Trump has his
Yep.
own DeFi platform. It's like everywhere you look, pro,
Let's
pro,
go.
pro crypto. Paul Atkins in 90 days is going to be like, this is a security, this is a commodity, here's your clarity. Then Congress will be able to honestly
That'd be
vote
nice for
Biden.
everyone.
Oh, it'd be wonderful. It would be amazing. And you're gonna see stocks go on chain. You're going to see T bills on chain. That's already happening, but it's just going to be in droves. It's
Yeah,
going to
we should be able
be
to
a
say
lot.
we should trade stocks 24/7. Like why not?
Correct. You got to put them on chain though, and you need liquidity
Yeah,
and you
that's what I'm
need
saying. I mean,
tokens.
I'm all for that.
Yeah,
Like why not just worldwide exchanges on chain? All right, so very
I
exciting
think
stuff happening. Paul Atkins is going to
yes.
be, putting these things on paper, setting the rules. So when that
Hmm.
happens, a lot's going to go, change, pop up in the market. What newer tokens are you excited about that we should be thinking about maybe getting into ahead of all this, legislation?
I I think that all of the it's kind of a complex topic, but on my channel I talk about it a lot. There's this organization between governments and between countries called International Standards Organization, ISO. What the ISO does is it sets standards for systems to communicate. That way, because everyone speaks a different language, they all have different value accrual currencies, right? They all have different things. They all have different
Yep.
policies and procedures. So when they actually want to send money to one another, there is an organization, the ISO, that tells them the language the systems need to speak. And there's only a handful of tokens that are ISO compliant. So once we have clarity about are
Interesting.
these securities, are these commodities, I think you're going to see a widespread adoption of all of the ISO compliant tokens because now they'll be able to custody them. They'll be able to work with the tech.
Okay.
They'll be able to actually turn on all of these things because the countries have been worried because America still doesn't have a decision. And they can't look to Dubai, they can't look to Singapore. Those are such small, like our GDP, just 7 companies is larger than 100 countries. And we have thousands of companies that are larger than countries. So, I mean, it's like crazy to think about. But America
I mean,
is the guy.
Apple itself is a top 20 country.
Yeah, I know. That's just one company and it's here. So
Yeah.
everyone looks to America for
Yeah.
guidance. So all of these ISO tokens are going to pump. That would include, and you can go look at some
Are
of the
those the largest
prices.
companies? Is that just the largest companies in largest coins, rather, the ISO tokens, or does it not work like that?
No, it's like those are the only systems that would work with government systems. If they are ISO compliant, the specific standard is 222.
Yeah.
That's the same standard that like the Bank of Japan uses in their back-end systems to settle all of their ledgers to the
Okay.
Japanese government, right?
But
There's
are the
only
ISO tokens
seven.
like is that like Bitcoin and Ethereum, or like which
No,
coins are no?
no,
Okay.
mm-mm. They are not ISO compliant. So XRP, XLM, HBAR, XDC, Algorand, um, Quant, and then there's one more for the folks at home.
So
I'm
interesting. So
forgetting it.
HBAR, I mean, I can't even buy HBAR on my Robinhood account, but it's ISO compliant, could be traded across the world. So that's very interesting.
Correct. Yeah, it is very interesting. I mean, just go look at the prices if you're at home at the performance of these things since
XRP is blowing up
Trump's.
again.
Yeah, I'm up crazy. I'm up at 12x on XRP. It's insane. It went from 22 cents to $3.30 since I've owned it. Um, Hedera's
Should
up
should should most
from
people
four
be like getting a
cents.
blended basket of that? Like, should they be trying to pick, or should they just be like, hey, we don't know, let's get them all?
I, in my opinion, the best way to do it is the way my fund does it, where I have themes. So I have buckets of ideas. One of them is instant, like government adoption of blockchain, and those are the ISO tokens. If you do the research,
Okay,
you're going to understand that America cannot have an Ethereum app that works with its banking system. It just can't. So all of
that
everyone's
makes me
ideas
very
and
bullish on
visions.
ISO tokens. Then,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've done very well on my government sleeve. That's my gov sleeve. I have an institutional
okay.
sleeve. I have a retail sleeve. I have an infrastructure sleeve. I have an interoperability sleeve. I have a store of value sleeve. And I
Oh,
have
we're going
all
to
these
dive into
different,
all those on the next podcast. All right.
yeah, I have all these sleeves, all these themes, and then inside of those themes, I basically have a buy box, of 30 or so attributes that I look for to identify protocols that are most likely to be adopted in those sleeves. And that's the very specific
Okay.
analysis I do, the likelihood of adoption, because if something's being adopted in blockchain, that means its token is being used for the finite resources it represents. And if I own the supply of that network, it doesn't really matter what the blocks are used for. That token's going to be used to buy them, and I'm going to make money. And it doesn't really matter if it's a porn app, a gambling app, a social app, a Netflix. It does not matter who adopts it. If there's network activity, I'm making money. So it's like, I don't want to try to guess which app is going to pop off. I'm not trying to pick between Facebook
Okay.
and MySpace. I'm more concerned
Yeah.
like, I want to make money on the server space, if you will, that those things are going to be buying. I want to own Oracle. I want to own IBM. I want to own TSM, Nvidia. If I'm translating it to
Oracle,
equities,
great buy last year.
yeah, Oracle will always do well, in my opinion. Their software and their servers are everywhere
Their
at the
infrastructure
enterprise
is
level.
blowing up. Everyone wants it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't work in an Oracle SQL database, you can't get a job in corporate America as a data guy. You just can't. Like
Yeah.
you can't. That's how it.
That
But see,
that's
like that's the depth that that company is integrated. You'd have to know enough about technology to understand their moat, and it's impeccable. It's a wonderful moat. I mean, but those are the names that I'm interested in, or the equivalent of names in crypto. I'm looking for that.
okay.
Let's own the racetrack, not pick a specific horse. I want to make money from all the people just gambling on the horses. I don't want to have to try to guess the horse. And
That makes sense.
I had, yeah, it's all those second and third order consequences. Like, as a rough example, before we close this out, like if you would have just held Ethereum back in the last bull market, and you'd have bought it at its trough and held it to its peak, you'd have pulled almost 1,000%. Or, and then the comparison would be, so that's
Wow.
my strategy. That's my strategy. Other people tried to make 10,000, 20,000% by buying the NFTs that caused Ethereum to go up 10x. So you can try to guess at the app layer. 1 out of 10 to 30,000 on meme coins is going to do well. And
Yep.
you could expose yourself to all of that risk. Or you could just buy the infrastructure that all of those NFTs are settling on and
I
not
like
do
that.
as well. But I mean, what are we talking about? How
Much
long in
higher percent
equities?
chance of winning.
That's it. What is the likelihood of adoptability? Like, how
I
likely is
would
this going to be
rather
adopted?
buy the company that has the moat than just try to pick that winning horse. And I also want to kind of paint a picture of everyone. We talk about a moat. It's the ability to block out competition. So the racetrack analogy, imagine if you had a river around the racetrack. So only the horses on that racetrack could run and no other horse could get in. That is the moat that we're talking about. These
Yep.
companies, Apple, Nvidia, TSM, Oracle, they have the moat. No one can get on their track. They're not
Yep.
even competing. They're just winning.
Just running around. I mean,
And that's why it's important to invest in companies that have moats, invest in coins of infrastructures that have moats. And that's going to protect you. There's a very limited downside if you have a massive moat. It might hurt the upside, like you're saying. You're not going to get the 30,000% growth, but you're also not going to lose 99%.
there you go. It's all about risk mitigation. And I gotta say, I am bullish on moats. I think the Kings had it right back in the day. I'm very bullish on moats. I'm bullish on
Yes.
Ethereum. They have a wonderful moat,
I want people to invest
72%
in these companies with
adopted.
moats. I'm worried if people invest in stocks that have crazy high risk, like the quantum as an example, even though they're killing it day to day. All these coins that might be just popping off that are very small, meme coins. That's where people are going to lose money. And investing is long term, disciplined approach. It is very hard to win decade after decade. There's so few professional money managers that have beat the S&P for decades in a row. There's like a handful. So you have to stay so disciplined. You can't just go chasing alpha and these stocks that are, the highest gainers of the day or the biggest coin, flow of the day, because eventually you're going to lose. There's smarter money out there. It's not us. It's people that have, major algorithms and bots trading this stuff. We can't even catch them. So we need to focus on the companies that are going to win long-term, be smart investors. And that is something I hope our listeners can pick up on, is making long-term investment choices. I'm a very big fan of investing for the long haul. I do not day trade.
I make that distinction all the time. I'm not a trader. I'm an investor. That is the
Yes.
difference. Investors are boring. They were probably not the most exciting people to get, coffee with, but we win.
You can still have new ideas
So,
and talk about new
yeah,
themes, but you
of
don't have to
course.
buy them on day one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, give it a quarter. Like if you learned about Bitcoin in 2013, gave it a year, bought it in 2014, you're winning. And that would apply to any of the things. Like research and conviction takes time, it
Yes.
takes dedication, and you're going to need conviction if you're going long in tech. I mean, look at Kathy Wood. I mean, she's down 68%. She's on CNN telling them, "Oh, we're
She's
going to
holding
crush it."
strong. She says
Holding
Tesla's going
strong.
to 2,500 and it's only at 400 right now.
And she just buys, buys, buys. Like her Coinbase trade, she was down on Fox, down 60 something percent on her trade, and she announced on that interview that she was buying more. And now, if you go look at it, Coinbase is up 400 something percent. And she's like,
So she's
that's the
right.
conviction. That's the conviction you need. And
Yes.
you need to just let people just squawk along while you keep your eye on the prize. And it's really boring, but really difficult because you want to do something. You feel like you're doing nothing when in reality, you're doing a lot by doing the
Yeah.
research, picking the name, and then staying on top of that name and maintaining your conviction. If your thesis change, you can't be afraid to change or pivot. But in general, that conviction is going to carry you through those times. And it's going to make you a much better investor.
I'm right there with you. I mean, the easiest trade is usually not the one to make. It's usually the hardest trade is the one to make. When people are saying don't buy it, God, there were so many haters. I remember speaking of Kathy Wood and Tesla. Back when Tesla was in the hundreds again, and it was around the 160. Like people were just flipping out, like, oh my God, sell this thing. And then, oh, actually, they could be up 200% had they just bought it then and held on for 6 months. So it's when people are scared. If you know it's a good company and you have the conviction, you double down.
That's right. You gotta
And
stay
with
bullish
that,
always, guys.
I will say, stay bullish, stay hungry, and stay foolish.
I like it.
That's
Until
it,
next time,
guys.
y'all.
Another amazing episode. Stay bullish. We'll see you next week.
Bulls. That's a wrap on today's episode of Bullish and Beyond. Remember, the market never sleeps and neither should your ambitions. Whether it's stocks, crypto, or just leveling up in life, stay focused, stay bullish, and keep charging forward. Keep your energy high and your mindset bullish. This is Beery the Bull, your AI co-host, Brian the Macman, and JT Knows Things signing off. All content published by Bullish and Beyond, LLC reflects personal opinions only and is provided for informational purposes. Please conduct your own research and discuss with your accountant and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The information presented should not be taken as financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Nothing you hear, see, or read in our content should be considered as any form of financial, investment, or legal advice, or a solicitation to buy or sell any assets, or to make any financial decisions.